Today's Top 5 Wednesday is Top 5 rereads, so let's do this. Hi everybody, it's Lydia here. So this is pretty self-explanatory, just your favourite books to reread, so let's get on with this. At number 5 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I picked this because of the enjoyability factor about reading this book. I wasn't overly a massive fan of the plot, it's a bit thin on the ground, but the actual enjoyment element of reading the book is amazing because it is so beautifully written, and throughout the book, I don't want to spoil the story or anything, but throughout the book, basically it goes into the world of the circus and imagines it from the point of view of a person visiting it. It's just really beautiful and I love it. It's just, it really kind of fires up your imagination and oh, it's so enjoyable. At number 4 is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Now I could have picked pretty much any other Neil Gaiman book because I basically picked this because of the writing style. I feel like he's one of those authors who just, there are so many in-jokes in the text and it's just such a fun read. Aside from the whole story, it's just really comically written. I think he has such an enjoyable writing style, and as I say, I could have picked any of his books, but this is probably my favourite just because it's a fun, fantastical read, and I really enjoyed it. At number 3 is the most random book on my top 5, and that is Beloved by Toni Morrison, for the simple reason that I feel like reading this once isn't enough. It's one of those books that is extremely complex. There are so many different levels to this book, and I feel like reading it through once, you don't get the story well enough as if you read it through a second or third time, and it's such an incredible book. It deserves all the plaudits it's ever got, and I would really recommend reading this book, but reread it as well because it's so amazing, and I don't think you get the whole gist of it the first time round. Number 2 is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien because the description in this book goes on for days, and I love the fact that he can just spend hours describing a waterfall or a field or something simple like that, and it's so beautiful. And I feel like the first time round when you read it, particularly, I mean obviously nowadays there are the films, but particularly if you don't know the story whatsoever, I feel like the first time you just read it for the story, and although the description is great, you get the most from the story. The second time round I feel like you really appreciate the description and the world building, and the third time and fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. it's just even more amazing and even more magical. So yeah, that's number 2. And at number 1 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. Could have picked any of the books from this series, but I went for this one because of the plot. I'm not going to go into it because there's quite a big spoiler in it and I don't want to give it away, but for anyone who has read this book, you will know there is a kind of element to it in which when you first read it through, there are things that happen that you don't really understand as much when you don't know the full story. When you go back and reread it, there are just some clever little bits in there that you don't notice first time round, and so for that is my top book to reread. Look how random Beloved looks in the middle of that top 5. It's so random, but it's so good, so read it. That is it for today's top 5. I will see you again tomorrow for another video and next Wednesday for another top 5, but until then, bye!